What's the most unlikely thing that could happen to you?
This video is made possible by Brilliant. Start learning intuitively with Brilliant for 20% off by being one of the first 200 people to sign up by clicking the link in the description. So at some point during your life, you've probably experienced something that you would describe as unlikely. But what are some of the most unlikely things that could happen to you during your life? To start with something more easy
Lottery's
to
gotta be
visualize,
one of them,
imagine
right?
walking into a room with 30 random people. There is a 1 in 12 chance that you would share the same birthday with somebody else in that room, which seems unlikely, but it's almost infinitely more likely than some other future probabilities later in this video. If you apply to Harvard, you only have a 1 in 20 chance of getting accepted, but that's still more likely than taking a pair of dice and rolling a snake eyes, which is only a 1 in 36 chance. To get a little more unlikely, you have only about a 1 in 100 chance of developing a brain tumor during your life, and a 1 in 102 chance of getting killed in an automobile accident if you live in the US. Medically speaking, you had a 1 in 500 chance of being born with 11 fingers or toes, which is still
wait, that's a lot higher than I would have thought.
Hockey player ever going pro, which is only 1 in 598.
Holy shit.
In fact, it's very unlikely that any random high school athlete will ever make it to the pros. With baseball being 1 in 659, football at 1 in 4,233.
Oh! Damn, what? What a jump. So 1 in 500 for hockey. Even baseball's not bad at 627, but football, holy shit. Well, dude, like, I've been saying this for a long time. Football players are probably the most athletic people on the planet. Like, genuine superhumans. Some of those defensive tackles, like, I remember Julius, what was his name for the Carolina Panthers? Defensive tackle, I think it was Julius Pepper? It might have been Julius Pepper. He was like 380, and he ran, I think it was a 4.240. Was it Julius Peppers? Okay. Yeah, that guy, he was over 300 pounds or some shit, and he ran like a 4.240. They are actual superhumans. He also had a crazy vertical leap, too. Oh, he was 280, not 300. I knew it was something crazy, though. Like, it was an incredible, incredible number.
Soccer at 1 in 5,768, and most challenging of all is basketball at 1 in 11,771. To throw some more numbers in there,
goddamn!
How unlikely these statistics really are.
Get fucked, basketball players.
The 4-digit PIN code are 1 in 1,000, and the odds of you bowling a perfect 300-point game are 1 in 11,500. But all of these are more likely than you getting struck by lightning, which you have a 1 in 12,000 lifetime chance of happening to you.
That's actually higher than I thought.
If your skills at golf are average, then you have a roughly 1 in 12,500 chance of hitting a hole-in-one at the golf course, which is still much more likely than you getting murdered in the US, which you only have a 1 in 18,000 chance of per year. We're starting to get into the pretty unlikely.
This was made in 2018. I imagine that's gone up quite a bit, so you're probably more likely to get murdered than you are to hit a hole-in-one by now, I would think. I'd have to check. He's probably going to need to make like an update.
The events now, so with that being said, you only have a 1 in 54,000 chance of dying from a bee sting.
Thanks for the bits,
odds
Chansey.
of you dating a supermodel are unfortunately only 1 in 88,000.
That's what? That's super dependent on how good looking you are. If you're really good looking, your chances of dating a supermodel probably go from 1 in 88,000 to like 1 in 8. Maybe. Like, this has to be, like, from the perspective of just fucking greasy-fingered, Dorito-dusted gamer or some shit, maybe.
And the odds of you becoming the CEO of a Fortune 500 company are based on what degree you hold. MBAs have a 1 in 135,000 chance, engineers have a 1 in 164,000 chance, and lawyers have only a 1 in 386,000 chance.
Idiots.
Which is less likely than you getting killed in a firework accident at 1 in 340,000.
Here's Prime Garrett in Shadow.
Poker, you should know that the odds of you being dealt a royal flush are just 1 in 6 649,740, which is
Fuck.
only slightly more probable than the risk of the asteroid 2017 YZ1 impacting Earth on June 30th, 2047, which is a 1 in 670,000 chance.
Damn, that sounds like a guarantee.
Forward ahead to the very
Fuck.
unlikely events that probably won't ever happen to you or anybody else that you know. The odds of you getting killed by a terrorist in the US are just 1 in 4 million, and the risk of you getting eaten by a shark are even lower at just 1 in 8 million. You have a kind of
Real quick, you want to know a fun one that I know? It's probably not going to be on here because this is 2018. Your odds of getting killed at a gender reveal party are you're twice as likely to get killed at a gender reveal party than you are to get eaten or killed by a shark. So just keep that in mind. That would probably be somewhere between shark and the terrorist one.
8 million. You have a kind of surprising 1 in 10 million chance of becoming the president of the United States if you're a US citizen, which is even more likely than you dying in a commercial plane crash at the very, very low odds of only 1 in 11 million.
I don't believe that.
Even more ludicrously unlikely events, like your risk of getting killed by an asteroid impact at just 1
propaganda.
in 74
Flying's dangerous. I'm not doing it.
17,000. So you're literally more likely to get hit by an asteroid and die than you are to win the jackpot of the Powerball lottery, where the odds are a staggering 1 in 175 million. Back in 2016, the Powerball jackpot reached $1.6 billion, and you stood a better chance of winning that than you ever would have at winning the comparatively small $1 million grand prize of the McDonald's Monopoly game at just 1 in 451 million. But even still, there are people that these statistically unlikely events actually have happened to. But the next events are so unlikely that they may never happen to anybody in history, like picking a perfect NCAA bracket at a chance of just 1 in 128 billion.
You're telling me it is more likely to win the actual Powerball than it is to have a perfect bracket? I find that so hard to believe. Has there never been a perfect March Madness bracket? I thought for sure I remembered hearing about a perfect bracket when I was back in college. Never, huh? That's shocking.
NASA claims that the odds of you getting killed by a falling satellite are just 1 in 21 trillion. And if you haven't studied for that test coming up in a few days, you should know that the odds of you passing a 100-question multiple-choice exam by guessing on every question are only 1 in 750 trillion. But the most unlikely thing that I'll be talking about in this video that could happen to you seems pretty mundane at first. Shuffling the same deck of 52 cards and getting the same order of cards twice. The odds of you doing this are roughly 1 in 80 unvigintillion, or 1 in 8.0658 times 10 to the 67th power, or an 8 with 67
Oh
zeros
my fucking god!
There are more ways to arrange a deck of cards than there are atoms on Earth, which means that every time you've shuffled a deck, it's very likely that exact order of cards has never been seen in human history, and likely never will be again. But the best way that anybody has ever described this, in my opinion, was a user called LeoFrick on a Reddit thread that I've linked in the description. His quote roughly reads as follows: 8.0658 times 10 to the 67th is such an enormous number. Imagine that you set a timer for that many seconds. Stand on the equator and take a step forward every 1 billion years. When you've circled the entire Earth once, take a drop of water out of the Pacific Ocean and repeat. When the Pacific Ocean is empty, lay a sheet of paper down, refill the Pacific, and repeat. When your stack of paper reaches the sun, look at your timer. It seems to have barely changed.
What the fuck is going on?
8.0658 times 10 to the 67th seconds, and now you still have 8.063 times 10 to the 67th seconds still remaining. To kill the time further, you start doing something else. Shuffle a deck of cards and deal yourself 5 cards every billion years. Each time you get a royal flush, buy yourself a lottery ticket. Each time that ticket hits a jackpot, throw a grain of sand into the Grand Canyon. When the Grand Canyon is full, take 1 ounce of rock.
What the fuck is happening?
Empty the Grand Canyon and start the process.
This is the most Reddit shit ever.
When Everest has been been completely removed from the map, check the timer again. There's still barely any change. It's now at 5.364 times 10 to the 67th seconds remaining. You would have to repeat this entire enormous process 256 times to run out the timer to 0. The reason this is so complicated is because of a mathematical principle called factorials. You can figure out how many combinations a deck of 52 cards can be arranged into by multiplying 52 by 51, by 50, by 49, and so on until you get down to 1. That's how you get a number as ridiculous as this. So the math that goes into figuring out something like this is one of the most confusing things that I've ever experienced in making videos for this channel.
That is
knowing probability
shocking.
can be extremely rewarding. The next time you go to a casino, for example, it would be good for you to know that playing blackjack is where you're most likely to win any kind of money, and your starting hand determines what you should do based on probability. If your hand starts with 12, you only have a 31% chance of busting on the next card. But if you start with a 20, your odds shoot up to 92%, and you can see everything else in between. I learned all of this and more by taking the course on Games of Chance over at brilliant.org.
That was interesting. I knew about the card thing where, like, if you shuffle a deck of cards, there's a very good chance whatever combination the cards end up in has never been seen before in the history of the world. Which is, it's so weird to me how a deck of cards could have that many possible arrangements. Because it doesn't really, like, on the surface, it doesn't feel like it has that many. But apparently it does. Pretty cool, though. Never heard of the Uventillion. Never heard that number.